Hello and welcome to another episode of the Flyers Talk podcast. Today is Thursday, May 7th. As always, Katie Emmer and Jordan Hall joining you guys today for another episode. A lot to get to. We're just going to go end to end, Jordan, on a couple things today. Just see our hot takes come about. Eventually, very special guest, Andy Reynolds. He's the Flyers equipment manager. He's been all over the place. The WCHA Final Five, NCAA Tournament, Frozen Four, U.S. National Team. Others may remember him 5 seasons at the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, but he, since June of 2019, has been in the Flyers dressing room and on the road with them, helping out with different things. Really excited to pick his brain of a couple of memories so far, probably more than a couple, Jordan, but pleasure to be having him join us. Can't wait to show that all to you later on in today's episode. But first and foremost, Jordan, you heard me say the date. It is May 7th, and it is officially 8 weeks without the NHL. How are you holding up?
Katie, I'm doing well, but I definitely miss hockey. So I know we've been staying busy, which has been good. But how are you holding up? You're a puckhead.
Jordan, I am just like you. We're trying to stay as busy as we can, but it is a good time to just reflect and find, again, okay, here we go. You're tuning into the Flyers Talk podcast, but here's Katie Emmer giving her inspiration of the day.
I love it.
No, I do like to always focus on the positives, and I really have just reflected a lot. I know our podcast producer, Ben Berry, was on earlier. How are you holding up? And you just asked me that same question. To be honest, I'm losing it, Jordan. Like, I'll be okay,
Yes.
For anybody else that's concerned. Like, I will be just fine. Super lucky to just, be around family and everything right now. But I am losing it. Like, we need hockey. I know fans agree with that. It's so nice to, again, I'll reiterate, having those replays. We saw the 5 overtime game up on the screens for the 20-year anniversary in NBC Philly. There's so much throwbacks we get to catch up on, a lot of Flyers history to keep us busy. But I need hockey back. But, fortunately, I'll say this again, every day's a day closer, Jordan. We're going to get there. And hopefully it's sooner than later, but we're going to get there, and I can't wait for it to be back.
Likewise. And Katie, I know you're always looking at positives and silver linings. And I know maybe one silver lining is people spending time with their families. It's so funny just chatting with Andy. We'll hear from him later in the show, but just chatting with him when I first asked him to come on the Flyers Talk podcast, asked him how he was doing. He said he was doing well. He's like, hey, I'm getting a chance to spend time with family because, a guy in Andy's position is traveling a ton, going from city to city, and this could have been a crazy time for him being away from family. So, that was a nice little positive to hear. Spending time with family more than usual.
Yeah, and with that, James Van Riemsdyk even, Jordan, we said that on the last podcast, just had a daughter, him and his wife. And for his wife's sake, you're kind of maybe thinking you see that due date, like you mentioned, and thinking maybe, you won't have your husband around, won't have dad around. And he got to celebrate his birthday. He got to be around his family, and most importantly, got to welcome in that baby girl. I mean, this is a time where, looking at the positives, there's a lot of things, these guys are human beings, these players, and also the equipment manager that Andy is. It's fun to hear those stories, just to be like, you know what? Yeah, we want hockey back. Sports are so awesome. Sports are so important to us. But I think family is first and foremost. It's super fun Andy's great. And so is James Van Riemsdyk, like you mentioned. These guys really get to be home in a time they didn't think they would be. So it's kind of a nice little surprise, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it is. And like you said, I'm sure James Van Riemsdyk really had a great weekend. Whereas before,
of course he did.
He could have been in the thick of the Stanley Cup playoffs and in a totally different situation. Instead, he gets to welcome his daughter, celebrate his birthday with his wife and loved ones, and I'm sure that was special. So same for Andy, enjoying time with family. I think we're all enjoying time with family, Katie. But yes, we are dying to get hockey back, and we're excited to talk about hockey today.
Yeah, and speaking of Andy again, that interview will be coming. But first, we are going to we're gonna have some fun, Jordan, with a couple topics. Actually, more than a couple. We're gonna have some topics to discuss today. First and foremost, let's get into it. First and foremost, who do you think poses the biggest threat to the Flyers in the East? Because when you look at all of these different top teams, I would have to say it's the Penguins. I mean, when you look at this rivalry, how strong it is, and a lot of things, right, you have to consider, like the return of the season, it could be the Penguins. That would be the biggest threat, right? But like overall, just nonchalant, the Penguins, like playoffs or not, I would find is the biggest threat, especially when you look at Malkin, 74 points during the regular season. You had Cindy Crosby to that mix. And hey, Jordan, if we have a return here and we have the Flyers and the Penguins matching up, you're also going to see a guy named Jake Gensel who had a shoulder injury in December. He's probably making a return to the lineup. That's who I would have to say. And of course, I think I may know what you're going to say, but I'm just going to lay out because there is another team, but I would have to go Penguins. Who would you think poses the biggest threat?
Katie, I like that pick, but I will go with a different team. The reasons I like that pick, exactly, Gensel, a lot of people forget about that. He would be healthy, and he was huge against the Flyers in the playoffs in 2017-18. And they've always been a thorn in the Flyers' side with Crosby and Malkin. Flyers fans know those guys, and they've always been difficult. I'm going to go to the Lightning. I think that would be, well, if anything, we've seen the Flyers play really well against some of the best teams in the NHL, particularly the East, but they did not play particularly well against the Lightning. They had a tough time at Tampa, and I think they've always had a tough time at that Tampa team in terms of just the elements that they bring in terms of skill, speed.
In terms of Steven
Stamkos, a great goalie. That was one team that really worried me. If the Flyers wanted to make a really, really big run, I would worry about them getting past Tampa Bay. That was a team that I think was going to be extremely motivated, especially after last season's letdown in the opening round. So I just thought that would be a motivated team with tons of skill, tons of speed that I think would combat the Flyers' system, and the way they want to play is be hard on the forecheck and control possession. I think that would just be a tough matchup for the Flyers. So I would go Lightning, but that Penguins one is tough.
I like it. And especially when you consider the Lightning in the playoffs. I mean, that team's electric, pun intended. You see what I did there? Yeah. Nikita Kucherov, too. I mentioned Stamkos, but Kucherov, how could you ignore this guy? 85 points in the regular season. A very powerful team, but hey, anything's possible. Overall, though, I like that because they have been a threat for the Flyers this season so far. And speaking of that, I don't know if this works. Can I give you like maybe another one? I'm gonna go one more, and maybe like I think you'll agree with this one. Another threat in the East. I don't think we can ignore it. The Boston Bruins. Yeah. Of course, you have to, and this is going to be another one of the topics later on that we get into. Little hint there. But I mean, you got to think the Flyers, 2-1 against the Bees this season, but both of those wins came in a shootout. Like this team is always battling, and you expect to see that when they're in town too. Again, the Marchand flub and the shootout, nothing better than that. That was one of those 2 wins, but a team that just always poses a threat, I think, no matter what. So I would maybe put them at number 3, Jordan. So we go Penguins, Lightning, and maybe, I don't know if you want to put mine at number 1 though. I mean, if you want Lightning at number 1, no, I'm going to say Penguins though.
That's a good one. And
they're up there.
Katie, the one thing those 3 teams have are star power. And speaking of star power, our next topic. Oh! Like that segue? It's not bad, right?
As Jordan Hall would say, that's hot.
That's hot.
I liked that.
Next topic, what I think is a really fun one, especially because we finally saw a different all-star other than Claude Giroux or Jacob Voracek the one season. Travis Konecny was the Flyers' all-star this season. So that was nice to see a little change of pace there for the Flyers, another guy that's up and coming. So, Katie, if you were to pick the next Flyers all-star, who would it be?
These were so hard for me because another one, and this is a great topic, but I just have 2. And I'm going to say the number 1, but I do have 2 possible scenarios. So I'll give you the number 1. And this is I don't know if it's too much of a hot take, Jordan, but I see Carter Hart being an all-star. You have a guy that was in Calder consideration, of course, in that rookie year. He was a 9.17 last season in 31 games and now a 9.14 this season in just 43 games. His save percentage at home also speaks for itself. This guy is a competitor. He has a focus of beyond any guy I've ever seen in his age. His mentality can take him anywhere. That's why Flyers fans put their trust in him. But I really see, especially next season, it's your 3rd year in the league. And hopefully he has some more games this year to put under his belt. Hopefully it's even a Stanley Cup playoff experience to put under his belt. But Jordan, I see this guy as being one of those all-stars for the Orange and Black next season. I don't know if that's a hot take, but that's who I'm going to put my trust in to see out there in the all-star game. What about you?
That's a good one. When you said Carter Hart, he actually completely slipped my mind. Like, it wasn't even like a thought.
Oh, yeah?
But that's a really good one because, and you think once he gets in, you're thinking he could probably start racking them up, like some of the, the really good goalies in the league that can just consistently make the All-Star game. So
Yeah,
I think
you never know.
once he gets that kind of brand recognition within the league and within the division, that would be really cool to see. That's a great one, Katie.
Thanks.
For me, I want to say Sean Couturier because I think he's on the cusp of finally getting to one, and he's really put it up the past few seasons. He's really broken out, and now he's starting to get recognition. We saw it with the midseason voting for the Professional Hockey Writers Association for the Selke Trophy. He was number one. I think that was a telltale sign that he's starting to get recognized among the league as one of the elite centers. But I'm going to go a little more under the radar guy. I think Ivan Provorov will be the next.
Oh!
Was that your
That was who I was going to say second. Sorry, I'll let you go through. It's not about me, but great minds think alike. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, you think about it. He's only 23. He plays a ton of minutes. He was really blossoming this year. He had a huge sophomore season, then kind of slipped back under the radar with his third NHL season. He had a letdown year there. But then just got right back to it this year. And I think he's only going to get better and better and better. And he's starting to put up points. He's really starting to put up points. He's playing on the power play. I think he's going to become one of those fixtures among some of the better defensemen in the NHL, specifically within the Metropolitan Division. He's starting to get that respect. We heard Rick Tocchet talk about him, the Arizona Coyotes head coach, talk about him very highly during the season. So that tells me he's starting to get that recognition. I think I'm going to go him, and which is cool. Travis Konechny and Provorov are both 2015 first-round picks. We've seen Konechny finally hit that all-star level and get that recognition from the league, and I think Provorov could be the next. That would be really cool to see.
Yeah, and again, I'll go back. That was my second pick. It's like it was definitely he was part of the consideration, especially you were talking about his point production. I looked it up again. He is 5 points short of his career best, and his career best still had 13 more games than he's played this season. So he was on pace for one of his career best seasons point production-wise. And again, that's not what you depend on for a blue liner, but that kind of cherry on top certainly helps. I mean, you want your guys to be pitching and you want guys to score. And when we had Travis Sanheim on, it was fun to be talking about that and just that chemistry with the defensemen and how they've been able to really pitch in and stand out this season, especially among the leagues. So that would be another guy, Ivan Provorov, because he certainly leads the way in that group, him and Niskanen included, but definitely I could see Ivan Provorov jumping up there. Should we get into the next topic? These are fun. Okay, this one's kind of related to the first topic we just got into, but of the rivals, which do you dislike or hate the most? And you know what? I'm going to have to take the word hate out because it's really mean, okay? Hate's a very strong word, but we'll use dislike. Which do you dislike the most out of the rivals? And I'll tell you with this one, I had like specific players. Like that's a reason why, but I'll let you start.
I like that because I personally don't really dislike many players or anything, to be real. Like,
oh, come on.
I don't.
You like everyone.
Well, I do. And I will say, like, I've always had, like, a real big appreciation for Sidney Crosby, and I know that's probably going to drive Flyers fans crazy, but I've always just respected his game, how hard he works, how elite he is every single season. And I've spoken to him, not one-on-one, but I've interviewed him before in scrums, and I just think he's a good guy. I just don't think he's a bad guy by any means. So I'm not going to go to the Penguins because I just don't really have any hard dislike for those guys.
Okay.
I really appreciate the Capitals and what they've done. Alexander Ovechkin, is a likable guy. I think a lot of people would agree with that. So for me, mine's a little offbeat, I think, with what some Flyers fans would say. I'm going to go to the Devils. I just think they're just an annoying team to watch, to be honest. They've always kind of played that trap style that's just real. It doesn't –
in the neutral zone, yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't really lead to exciting games, but they've always kind of been annoying, boring games because the way in which they play. And they seem to sometimes slow the Flyers down, and then it gets into these, low-scoring, ugly games that just for me have never been fun to really watch. And they're kind of going through a transition phase too, the Devils. So I can't say I really like any of their players a ton. Wayne Simmons played for them this year. I love Wayne Simmons, great guy. But I'm going to go Devils for that reason. I just don't like the way they play. It's not fun hockey, in my opinion. Katie,
Okay.
I'm really excited for yours.
You want us? Okay, well, you did say you don't like the way they play. Overall, we have two different things going on because you chose a team, which is good. I just went with players. I don't know if that's the wrong answer, but
No,
I went with like the reasoning why like a certain team, like of the rivals, just what player really bothers me the most. And I don't know if I'm like not doing this right today. I've had like two for each one because I can't make up my mind on one.
No, I like it. It's good.
I'm just going to mention the fact of Tom Wilson. The Capitals, again, a tough team to play against. Didn't really feel like that with the Flyers this season. Like the Flyers always took advantage of it, but Tom Wilson, just in his prime, is always a player out there that is elbows up, like doing anything he can to stir the pot. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's a great player at that, and it's very frustrating, but he knows how to get in your head. And also, I mean, he's so aggressive. You see some of these hits too that unfortunately for him have led to suspensions, but he's a player that is a physical body out there, and he's always just a tough guy to play against. But away from that, this is kind of like a different bothersome person I dislike. Brad Marchand, like, of course, he's a part of that top line with the Bruins, and yeah, they're productive. You can't ignore the fact he's a skilled hockey player. But like Jordan, let's just say not a fan of licking faces in the play, like not a fan of that at all. Not a fan of that style of play. I dislike that a lot. And you know what? I think he loves it that we're talking about that kind of thing. Brad Marchand, if you're listening to the Flyers Talk podcast, kudos first off, like, thank you. Second,
let's go.
If he was, I'm sure he loves, that he has been able to stir the pot in that way. You get in the head of your competitor. I'm happy, something resulted from that for him, but not my style of hockey when you're looking another guy's face. That's all I got to say.
That's a Brad Marchand. That's a funny one because I think he's not well liked, obviously, by fans outside of Boston, but I think within the league too. I believe in that player voting that they do that goes up on the NHLPA website. I believe Brad Marchand was up there within trash talkers. And I remember when he flubbed on that shootout goal, I believe Sean Couturier, he was a very subtle and quiet guy.
Yeah, like nice out there.
He even quipped, he's like, yeah, when it happens to a guy like that, it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So that's a real fun one because I think, yeah, he's a guy that's always gotten under the skin of Flyers fans and players. Tom Wilson, though, man, that's a good one, too.
I mean, I just think of again, and you can't disregard the fact these guys are extremely talented hockey players and they've helped out with both of their franchises. But I mean, I can't stand that guy.
Yeah, no, I love it. I have a funny Tom Wilson story too. It was actually when I first started covering the Flyers in 2015-16, they played in the playoffs that year in the first round. And we're talking to Wayne Simmons before game one. And it turns out Wayne Simmons and Tom Wilson are actually decent friends. They've trained together a little bit. So two tough guys. And Wayne Simmons off the ice was, always a very nice, respectable guy. He would smile and talk to you. But on the ice, like, he's the baddest dude out there. And one of the more well-respected guys in the league. So, Wayne Simmons is telling us about, his relationship with Tom Wilson. And he knows he's a physical guy just like Wayne Simmons. And, there's a mutual respect there. And they train together. What do you know? Game one, they drop the gloves and fight. And, it was a heavyweight fight, like two really tough guys, Wayne Simmons and Tom Wilson. And it was a legit, heavyweight, some haymakers.
Oh, yeah.
And after the game, Simmons was as serious as can be. And he's like, there's no friends on the ice. I do not care. And it really set the tone for that series. It was really cool. It was in Washington, D.C., Flyers, Capitals, Wayne Simmons versus Tom Wilson. And that's when I knew, there is no joking about that whole no friends on the ice. Like, Simmons did not care, nor did Tom Wilson.
I also feel like that's a great story. I also feel like there's a different line, Jordan. Like, you respect guys that fight. Like, you see the stick taps, and they're, like, appreciative of guys getting out there and dropping the gloves and going at it, because that kind of emotion that it adds to the game. Again, I think the biggest difference is this is playoff hockey.
Yeah.
There's no friends on the ice. But Wayne Simmons, too, is also a big difference. I don't see that guy wanting to be friends with anybody but his teammates. And how funny is that? Such a mean guy on the ice, but such a great teammate overall.
Yeah, seriously. And if that was the first time I had ever covered the Stanley Cup playoffs in my job. So that really introduced me to the intensity of the playoffs.
You're like, what did I get myself into?
Exactly. But it's so true. Off the ice, Wayne Simmons was just an amazing guy. I'll never forget anytime the Flyers had some special thing within the practice locker room after a practice. Obviously, the Flyers are first class. So many times they have, maybe someone come in for a special meet and greet with players. And Wayne Simmons, taller, lankier guy, would get down and, on his knees and would stare, maybe a young kid in the eye or a little girl. And he was just the nicest guy off the ice.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say Devils, but he's no longer on the Devils, so I'm okay saying the Devils for my pick of rivals. The Wayne Simmons.
Yeah, and you just sparked look at this transition. Are you ready? He was no longer on the Devils because of that trade deadline there. And now leading into our next topic, with this season in chaos, Jordan, should the league open the trade market? I know that's a bizarre thing to really think about, and because there's so many different things going on. Like if there isn't an NHL season and you just acquired a guy to finish a good example would be Derek Grant. Derek Grant, say, gets picked up and he's on a different team. First off, he was here for a blink of an eye with the Flyers, but gets picked up for no season because there isn't a season. I mean, worst case scenario. There's so many different question marks, but do you see a positive in that, or do you see a negative in that, or just overall, this is fun, right? Like
it is fun.
Would you see if you were in charge, if you were Mr. Bettman in charge of this league, would you open up the trade market?
I wouldn't, and it would just put general managers in such a tough position for that fact right there. Is that these guys, even the general managers, they don't know if there's going to be a season to finish. And that changes everything. Like you said, Katie, if you're trading a Derek Grant or a guy that's basically a second half rental, in this case, he'd be a rental for 12, 13 games if they're able to finish the regular season. And then obviously he'd be a rental for the playoffs, but then you're going to lose him probably in free agency. That's such a tough position for a GM to say, well, yeah, I would love to acquire this guy if we play. And then you think of, if you're trading a guy who's probably back home in his hometown where he grew up or wherever he lives in the off season, and then all of a sudden he's got to pick up, and obviously traveling is a whole nother nightmare right now for teams. And I can't imagine being traded as all this is happening. So I think that would be another obstacle for the NHL to be like, hey, let's just open up the trade market again. But it is fun to think of, because how difficult would that be, Katie, in terms of the GMs, for the players that could be traded? Would you think it would lend more towards trades for players that maybe are under contract, trades that would be more geared towards 2020-21? Because, I don't think you would want to be trading for a guy that's going to help you now. You're probably trading for a guy that's going to help you next season. Yeah,
and I just think overall what you said with the GMs, it's just the biggest headache you could ever think of. There's already so many uncertainties now. You're thinking about, I know, they're thinking about next season, but for Bettman, he's addressed the fact, they're still thinking about this season, which you love to hear, right? It's important to award a Stanley Cup. That's where our hope is right now, right? On that little nugget we saw mid to late May, we're holding on to that for sure. But I think if you're opening up the trade market, of course you're thinking of next year, but hey, if there's going to be a playoff, if there's going to be any sort of format and you're a team that's going to be involved in that, you're looking for this season. You're looking for a guy to help you out. It's a really interesting situation, because even with the trade market, it is already that small frame of not even half the season where you could lend someone to somebody else and then there they are. And now to even think about okay, it could be 2 months or 3 months of just a hot minute in that team or that city that you're playing for. It would be bizarre. So yeah, I would think too, I would agree with you that they're thinking about, 2021. And just another thing too, that I think about, JG Peugeot, think about this player. I saw this with NHL Network. He is a player that was traded at that deadline to the Islanders. He goes to the Islanders after being with Ottawa for so long. He's there for 7 games, Jordan, and now this NHL pause happens. Like, think about a player like him that could potentially go somewhere else again. I mean, it's so crazy for players like that are really, and again, we care mostly about our Flyers here, but that's just another example of how away from like this ever happening, how the trade deadline is just so bizarre as it is. But for players like that, 7 games, Jordan, and now you're on an NHL pause and you're like, oh, so, I mean, go Islanders, but also like I haven't really situated there yet, so I don't know how I feel.
Right. I think that's like the biggest thing is it would be really almost cruel and unfair to players that are dealing with this to begin with, and then they're trying to think of when the season will resume, where are they going to play, how safe will it be, and then you throw in like the potential of them being traded and having to relocate once they do resume. I think that would almost be, like I said, I think it would be cruel and unfair for players.
I know, it would just, you know what it would be? It would just be straight up mean. And
yes.
like, I don't know. I know that it's like, oh, who cares about feelings? These guys get paid to go do this. But at the same time, you want a player really embracing the city, right? You want a Kevin Hayes that wanted to come to Philly. He knew that, you know, he would love this fan base. He knew he would love the city. And of course, he had time to decide that on a trade. Like, you don't really have a say, of course, if you're restricted maybe. But like unrestricted, these guys, they go wherever life leads them and they go wherever they're traded. So I think at the same time, you have to consider the fact that like they have to like want it. They have to want to play there too.
Yeah. And if anything, I'm sure it would be fun for fans that are just craving information. Like, I'm sure it'd be really cool to see some trade rumors surface throughout this time, because it would spark interest and discussion. But you think too for general managers in the league, like with any trade, right? There's always, you're weighing risk and reward. There's just way too many risks right now if you're trading a guy. And I can't imagine too many teams being too interested right now in trades. Obviously, they probably did what they wanted to do at the NHL trade deadline in February, and they probably had the team that they're thinking, or at least the outlook, whether it be like a team like the Senators who were rebuilding and now they know kind of where they are going into next season, or you're the Flyers and you already have what you like. You got what you wanted at the deadline and you were ready to go for the rest of the season. But it would be cool, at least just for our own sake, to hear stuff. But I think for players, it would be unfair. And for GMs, it would be difficult. But it is fun to talk about. No,
it definitely is. And just one more thing, you mentioned the headaches for the GMs, or, I mentioned the headaches, but just how much going on. They already are, making moves, signing guys out of college, signing, any other player. So there's still moves going on, and this would just add to that mix. I think it'd be way too much. And I think it's kind of that control what you can control. So like, it would be so fun to think about, but just in conclusion, my belief with that, it will never happen. I don't see the trade market opening up. As fun as it would be, I don't see it opening up, just with the fact that such an uncertain circumstance, of course, that we both know, and all fans know, you don't have hockey even being played right now, but also just how many crazy things are going on. I don't think they're going to add to that list.
Exactly, Katie. And Chuck Fletcher and Brent Flair and the whole Flyers front office, they're hard at work because they can still, look at things for the future. They can discuss, off-season initiatives and what they need to accomplish. Obviously, they really can't do anything in terms of like finalizing those thoughts of what they want to do, but they can certainly prepare for it. So I'm sure they're discussing all their free agents, all their unrestricted free agents.
And prepare for it is a great thing, because there's a deadline of a guy, like, how long you have him. And if you just pulled out from under, I mean, you can't control that. And I think that's a good point for sure.
Yeah. But again, just too much unknown. You don't know if this season's going to finish and how that will play into signing or not signing someone, or what that restricted free agent deserves for his new deal. So just so many things up in the air, but hey, it's fun to talk about.
And Jordan, speaking of fun, we've talked about just who it has to deal with this NHL lifestyle, the players, of course, but also the staff. And with that, we talked about on the top of the show, Andy Reynolds, the Flyers equipment manager. He is joining us on the Flyers Talk podcast today. We're going to get to that interview. But first and foremost, Jordan, we love having anybody on. And of course, we love having Andy on. This is extra fun for me because I'm a St. Cloud State alum, St. Cloud State Husky. Great Division I program for those that may not know in college hockey. And Andy is a Duluth Bulldog. He went to Minnesota Duluth, but he worked for the Fighting Hawks, also known as the Fighting Sioux. So this is going to be really fun. Can't wait to get to it. Here you go, you guys. Here is our interview with Andy Reynolds.
So Andy, I know I was wondering. I know you got started in your position early on. I think you said you did it in high school as well as an equipment manager. So I was curious, did you always have a love for hockey, and kind of what made you have a passion for sort of behind the scenes type of job?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Katie can probably attest to it, but, every kid in Minnesota pretty much likes hockey. And, I just, growing up, I'd play with my friends and stuff. I didn't really play on many teams or anything, but we just kind of play at the parks and stuff. And then got into high school, and one of our counselors, or I guess he's the athletic director there now, kind of got me into it and said, "You want to help the hockey team out?" And sure, it'd be great. And did that for 4 years. And, I kind of got hooked to it. And then from there, I kind of picked my college based off of that. There was one of the dads on our team knew the guy at Duluth who had been there forever. And so I contacted him and decided to go to Minnesota Duluth, and he got a job there for me, work study or whatever. And so went to school and helped the men's and women's team out there, and did that for 4 years. And that was a lot of fun and kind of set me on my path there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you mentioned it right there. I loved meeting you initially right away at Skate Zone. You're like, oh, Minnesota, huh? It's like that initial connected, just any Minnesota people that you can find in the sport of hockey. And it's not too far you have to look. It's definitely a big sport in that state. First and foremost, before we get into anything else, how big of a St. Cloud State Husky fan are you? I mean, how much do you love the Huskies? I just need to know.
To be fair, my high school coach, Mike Gibbons, who just
retired.
I was really close with Gibby. So I had a little soft spot for him, but I can't lie, I loved beating him. So we didn't really have as much luck at Duluth beating them as when I was at Minnesota, but it was it's a good rivalry. They're a tough team to play, especially on that big ice. So
yeah, and you were a part. I mean, you're an alum for UMD, and then as you mentioned too, working at UND, North Dakota. How much of a difference was college hockey in comparison to NHL? I know the game speed is different for players, but as far as being a manager, being an equipment manager, what kind of differences from an NHL level or from the college level to the NHL level have you really noticed?
Well, obviously the biggest thing is guys kind of get what they want. I got lucky. I worked at 2 premier college hockey programs, and the guys there didn't really want for anything, but at the same time, it wasn't as wide open as it is here. And that's one of the biggest differences that it's a business now compared to, they're still playing for the love of the game, but it's guys get whatever they want. They get the tools they need to do the job. And so that was a big difference. And the other part was the travel, WCHA or NCHC, you'd go practice 4 days a week, and then you'd play 2 games, right? And they're usually Friday, Saturday in the same cities. You'd have the rare home and home with Bemidji or, Minnesota sometimes, but the travel and that's, the AHL got me ready for that. So it wasn't as big of an adjustment getting to the NHL. It was just travel's a little easier because you're flying on, a nice chartered plane. But, the travel is probably the biggest difference. The hours, I mean, you're still working a lot in the college ranks, but it's a grind, especially in the AHL. And now I noticed this year in the NHL with games every other day here and the back-to-backs that are a lot tougher than people realize on everybody. So.
Yeah, Andy, we found it really cool that you worked for Dave Hackstall in North Dakota, and then both of you guys found yourselves in the Philadelphia Flyers organization. I wanted to ask, what was it like with Dave Hackstall? We got to know him as media members here, but you obviously worked with him up close. Just what was it like working for Dave Hackstall, and was it cool to see him make that NHL jump too?
Yeah, when I first got to North Dakota, I became really good friends with Brett Hextall and with Corbin Knight, who played for the Flyers last year, and obviously Hack was there, and I just, the 4 years I happened to work there, everyone always kind of joked Hack would be in the NHL someday, or not joke, but kind of was like, well, it's going to happen. He's going to be the guy that does it, and it's just. It was cool to see, I left the year before he ended up leaving and joining, but it was just really cool to see. And, I was happy for him because, I mean, he he works tirelessly. Like, he put everything into that program, and he puts everything into what he does. And it was just, he's really inspirational. You know, he'd beat me to the rink a lot of times in North Dakota just to watch video or to get ready for practice that day or on game days. And it was just, it's cool to see just how much work he would put in, and to have, you know, to advance onto the NHL for him. That was cool to see. So, and it's fun. It was fun to work for him at North Dakota. You expect a lot out of you and a lot of the team, and you know, he was a good person. So.
Yeah, and speaking of putting in the work, you know, just talking about that transition from college hockey even to the AHL and then the NHL for you, you talk about travel and the differences with what guys specifically need in the professional level. With that being said, I feel like, you know, equipment manager, like, we know you're busy, but what does your typical game day look like? I mean, what are you doing from when you wake up to the end of a game?
Yeah, so we'll take a home game, for example. So we'll get up probably around 6, get to the rink about 6:30. I'll meet Harry there. If we had practice at skate zone the day before, and you guys will see us in the room running around getting skates and the goalie gear and stuff, usually after you guys leave, Harry will bring the goalie gear and the skates over to the Wells Fargo Center, to drop that off so it can dry overnight. And then the next morning we'll get up and drive over to the rink from skate zone to Wells Fargo Center, get the room set up. Usually we'll have a pregame skate. Sometimes they just have meetings and stretches. And then the guys are kind of there until noon. They'll eat lunch or whatever. And during that time, we'll, you know, get ready for the game. We'll do any skate sharpening we have to do, any repairs or any ordering that I might have to do on the computer, just kind of there in case someone needs something. They'll leave, and then we'll kind of reset because the room will be a little bit of a mess, and there'll be laundry that needs to get done. There'll be skates that need to get done again, and a few other things like that. Usually we get like an hour dead period in the afternoon. I'll go for a run. And then, you know, but pretty much 3:00 until game time is just kind of sitting and waiting for some type of event to happen. Someone's going to come in with the last second request or repair, or, you know, I'll get the bench set up with the steel and the other stuff like that, but that doesn't really take too much time. But it's pretty much just being ready in case someone needs something, because more times than not, it's going to be something, whether it's just a cosmetic thing or whether it's, you know, someone wants to change and wear a new pair of skates or something. So just ready for that. And then obviously the game will go on. And once the game ends, depending on the next day, if we're going to fly out or what, if it's just a practice at the skate zone the next day, then we'll pack up all the skates and the goalie gear, load it onto the truck and drive it over to skate zone, put it away. I usually get home about 11 o'clock on game days then. So it's about 7 to 11.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a full day. And you kind of mentioned this. I was going to ask, I mean, you kind of mentioned this part about being ready to order anything. Is there like a minimum amount of blades you need for each player, shields you need for each player? I mean, sticks, of course, water bottles. Is there a minimum you have to hit, or does it depend on the player?
It all depends on the player. Most of our guys, if not all of our guys, have 6 sets of steel now. It makes it so we can, you know, it makes it easier on us, and it's easier on them also. Obviously, they don't have to get off the bench anymore to get their skate sharpened. But yeah, so we run about 6 pairs of steel per guy, and you know, some guys are stick a game guys. Some guys can go weeks without new sticks. I think this year Jake Voracek went from like early December until mid-January with the same sticks, and it's just amazing. And then other guys will break left and right. But you know, it's all depends on the player, right? I mean, it's completely dependent on them as much as you need to order. So
it's a serious grind each day, Andy, and I know you probably got really used to it at the pro level with the Phantoms. I was curious, what brought you to Lehigh Valley? Because I know you were out Midwest for a while. You're from Minnesota, but kind of was there anyone that kind of tipped you to Lehigh Valley, or any reason why you wanted to come Northeast?
No, you know, I just wanted to make a change. You know, I was just kind of looking that summer just at different things. You know, I loved it at North Dakota. I had a good time. I just, you know, with the wife and kids and everything, we had just had our first, and I was just wanted to look at something different, you know, and I heard about Lehigh Valley opening up, and it's this team that was moving from Adirondack down to, you know, Allentown, and I'd never heard never heard about Allentown before. I swear to you, I'd never heard the song Allentown by Billy Joel until the week I got the job. And then it honestly was on the radio every day, I feel like. But it was, I just wanted something different. And we got there, and it was a little bit of a culture shock compared to what we were used to in, Grand Forks, which I kind of joke to people is like a 4x4, 4 mile wide by 4 mile tall. And it's like a perfect grid and, super wide roads and everything. And you get out east here and it's tiny roads and there's intersections where there's, 7 lanes, and so it was a little bit of a culture shock, but it was just, wanted something different, and moving into this new building in Allentown was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, and speaking of the wife and kids, I mean, how are you all holding up, and where are you guys holding up right now?
Yeah, we're good. We're in South Jersey. We live in Summerdale there, and my oldest is 6. She's in kindergarten, so she's been doing the twice a day video meetings with her class and her teacher. And then our 3-year-old, she'll be 4 in June. She kind of runs the house right now, so that's been a bit of a pain, but it's been fun. We don't get a lot of downtime throughout the season. So the one positive you can take out of all of this is you get a little bit more family time. And it's been fun to catch up with them and to do things with them. Some days you want to pull your hair out, but other days it's, for the most part, it's been great. We're hanging out. We're going for a run every day. We go for family walks every day. And, they've been good with having to sit in the house, during these 2 months. So.
That's awesome. There's a great picture, Andy, of, I remember Zach Hill, the director of communications and PR for the Flyers, took a picture of Phil Myers during practice. And there's this cute little girl who's like, her eyes are just lit up, and it was your daughter.
Yeah.
And you told me, you're like, yeah, she loves coming to practice and watching things. Are your daughters becoming big hockey fans? Do they enjoy seeing you sometimes on TV on the bench?
Yeah. My oldest daughter's probably the bigger of the 2 fans. And she, ever since she could stand, because we moved out east when she was about 6 months. So, she went to all the Phantoms games that were at home, and she was always on the glass waving during warm-ups, and she'd sit and watch intently during the game. And, she paid so much attention. She has a blast. And they love coming to the Flyers games now. They come to every game, so I could see them for a little bit during those long home games. I could see them a little bit before the game, but they've started to find places now at Wells Fargo Center to stand during warm-ups, and they definitely like the babysitting room a little bit more now, and they do a great job in there with them, with the girls and everybody, and it's but yeah, they're turning into little hockey fans. We just got a knee hockey set here a couple weeks ago, so that's been the popular toy in the house lately. So
exciting. No, I'm sure it's fun for them too to have a dad with such a cool job to go tag along at the rink and everything like that. But June of 2019, you jumped in with the Flyers. So we're coming up on almost 1 year. Hard to believe it's already that point, of course, such an uncertain time. But coming up on 1 year, what's been your overall just best memory working with this team? Any specific player stories, any coach stories? Has there been a single highlight you've seen so far?
That Europe trip is the easy one to say, because it was just such a cool experience. I get your first game out of the way, but at the same time, you get to go over and see something different. That was really cool. I'd been to Europe twice when I worked with USA Hockey there, the 1 year between North Dakota and Minnesota Duluth. So I'd been over there, but I was in Slovakia twice. So nothing against Slovakia, but it wasn't anywhere near as nice as Switzerland was and as Prague was. And so it's cool to get over there and see something new. And that was a really cool experience. But one of the best parts of the year, I think, has been just watching this team from pretty much, all year, but from All-Star break on, just how fun it's been every night, just really good hockey. It's just been really cool to see the guys, how well they've been playing, and just that's been the biggest highlight, I think, was just the last few weeks there, that we had. It was just a lot of fun, and it makes you forget that parts of this are a business, and it was just fun. It was just a game, we were watching it. It was cool. It's hard to explain, but that's probably my favorite part so far. So.
Yeah. Speaking of the fun, I'm sure this individual plays a part of it. Alain Vigneault, he just seems like he's so much fun and just being around him, it seems like he includes everyone, Andy. Like everyone's like a big part of the team. What has it been like just getting to know Alain Vigneault, work for him?
Yeah, he's a really cool guy. He comes in every day and says hi to everybody. On game days, he'll come in before the game and I'll say hi, big man, to Harry, and he'll say hi to me and give us fist bumps, and then he'll walk down and say hi to Rock, and he'll say hi to Tuna, and then the medical staff and the strength coaches, and it gets you, like it gets you ready, kind of, you see him, and it makes you feel more involved, and he's just been great. He's a fun guy. He's an easy person to talk to, and you can tell that resonates with a lot of people, and just getting to know him and the whole staff, it's been good. They're a great group of guys, and they've done a tremendous job this year, and it's fun to work with them. So,
are there any strange tendencies, any strange superstitions that you've seen with any of these guys? It could be coaches too, but I mean, you're right there. You see it firsthand. Is there anything that's different in comparison to working with the national team or college hockey or the AHL?
Nothing that different that I can think of. I mean,
does someone like to put all of their left gear on first and then their right? Like, is there someone that does a routine a little different? I don't think that's that different, because I've heard of that routine before. Like someone that needs to put all the equipment on one side before the other. Anything.
I've seen that before. I haven't seen that with this group. I mean, someone might do that. I haven't seen that, but yeah. I think it's funny. G usually gets dressed pretty late. He gets dressed really fast. So that's kind of funny. Hager will be in half of his gear ready to go, before the guys are even in the room, and he's usually the first to line up and everything. So I always joke with Bob about that, because he's got half his gear on, and it's 5 o'clock, I feel like, and the game's not till 7. So he gets ready really early. So that's something. He did that with the Phantoms too, though. So that was there's that one. And then I don't know. I feel like in college the guys were a lot more superstitious just because there were less games.
Yeah.
So there's more time to be superstitious. And here there's so many games. It gets so exhausting to be that superstitious, I think, sometimes. Yeah. I know, talking to Corbin Knight, the first year we had him back in Lehigh Valley there, he used to take, like, it was a big production to tape his sticks and wax his sticks between every single period and all this. And I noticed he didn't do it one day, and I asked him why. And he said because he sat next to some older guys when he played in Abbotsford, and they told him, listen, kid, you're going to have a long career in this, and we play 76 games a year. He goes, you're going to get sick of this by halfway through the year. And sure enough, by halfway through the year, he stopped doing that. So his superstitions kind of went out the window. But
yeah, you don't have time. There's too many games. You gotta find something quicker, more convenient.
Right. Some guys, I guess, Hazy's been wearing the same skates for over a year now, which is crazy, but he's comfortable in them. So I don't know if I'd call it a superstition more than a comfort thing, but
do a lot of those guys not wear socks with their skates? Or anybody barefoot in their skates?
Nobody does that anymore, especially because we strongly encourage the Kevlar socks. Everyone wears the Kevlar socks now. So I can't remember the last person I had that didn't wear socks. Well, you know what? Chris Stewart didn't for a while at the beginning of the year, but he ended up wearing the Kevlar socks. So it's I don't know if I could even do that. That's
same. I'm like, I was in disbelief when I would see that happen growing up. Another thing too, sharpening skates is that part of that's part of your duties, right? You mentioned you have to know the preference. Oh, sorry, but you have to know the preference of each player, correct? Is there someone that has a really complicated style that they have to have their blades every game? Or you're used to this maybe at this point?
Yeah, at this point you're used to it, and most of the guys hollows kind of off the top of your head. I mean, we have a sheet in the room that we kind of go off of if for whatever reason we're having a brain fart that day. But nothing's too crazy now. That maybe when I was at North Dakota, if I had some requests that I had on the skates that I do now, I'd be a little more shocked. But after seeing the different things the last 6 years now of pro hockey, it's not as unusual. I know Oscar Lindblom has a little bit different of a profile on his skate. He's got like 3 different profiles, the shape of the bottom of the skate. So that's a little bit different. But it's nothing too crazy that I've noticed. So
being so close to the bench, Andy, I wanted to ask if you can, is you probably hear a lot of trash talk, I'm sure, during games. If you can say, is there any teammate or Flyer, obviously, that is a little more vocal or one of the most vocal during games?
Honestly, I don't hear it as much as I did in the AHL. I don't know if it's just I was listening to it more then, or if more of it was going on then. I know it just as much is going on. The big one I picked up on was there's a picture that someone had put on Twitter of the game against the Rangers later in the season, and you've got Hazy, Lotz, and TK going at it with Lemieux, I believe, and so that was pretty fun. And that I think that group of people is probably the three that talk a lot. I mean, you hear them on the mic'd up, right? So, but as far as that, I mean, I don't hear it as much, but I don't know.
It is what it is, right? You're at this point, you're used to it, but it's got to be fun. I'm sure, I've had a job too, working between two benches as a reporter, and just, I know that feeling down there. I mean, you can't help but laugh at some of the things that you hear sometimes, but you have to stay professional, stay forward, but I'm sure you have a lot of fun down there right on the bench for games, especially this season.
Yeah, and thinking back, I don't know, Flyers fans will probably remember his name. He didn't get a chance up top here, but Cole Bardreau down in Lehigh Valley was probably the most I ever heard run his mouth on the ice, and he was always funny about it. Him and Nick Cousins actually, down there, they were a lot of fun. Those ones were fun to listen to because that would always happen right in front of the bench, so it was easy to hear. But
Bardreau was always like, he played so hard in training camp, like he was always hitting people, and that does not surprise me. I can envision or imagine him kind of being a little bit of a talker.
Good. Well, I think one of my favorite
no, you're good. Keep going.
When we were playing the Marlies, I think it was the 16-17 season, maybe the 8th. Trying to remember what year it was. It was one of the playoff years with the Phantoms, and we were playing the Marlies in the regular season. We were both two of the top teams in the league at that point in the year, so it was a pretty high profile game. And this one guy was kind of giving it to Bards in front of the net, and Bards didn't want to fight or anything like that, but the kid just pushed him enough, so Bards kind of yells, "Oh, really?" and turns around and punches him, and that's what they used on one of their promo videos for the longest time. So every time I see that, I'd always laugh, and I could just hear Bard saying it and just remembered the whole aftermath of all that. But it was just that was pretty fun.
Yeah, because fans can see that side, but you see a whole different side of these players. I was gonna say earlier, I used to be a ref. I don't know if you like that one a little bit. It's all I can think about with Kevin Hayes. Like,
great.
Has he, how many times has he used that one, or was it really just that one game we heard him mic'd up, Andy? I don't know if you heard that during the game, but where did that come from? Like, is this just Kevin Hayes for you?
I think that's just him. I'd only heard it that one time on the mic'd up, and then we were watching it. The girls were watching it the other day. They were watching Flyers mic'd up and highlights and stuff, and I heard that again, and I had to laugh. I hadn't heard that one before. I don't know the story behind that, but that was pretty good. I liked that one.
The creativity with him and his nicknames too. You just got to give him appreciation.
Yeah, Andy, does he have a nickname for you by any chance?
Yeah.
I don't know. Everyone just kind of calls me Andy. Some guys were calling me Randy. I don't know.
I heard you say earlier, like tuna and some different names. Can you elaborate on any of these nicknames that you have going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's me, right? And then there's Harry.
Yep.
Harry's been here he's been here forever. And they call him, every once in a while they'll call him Bricks because his last name's Bricker. There's Rock, who's Anthony Oratorio. He's worked for the Flyers forever as well. They call him Rock. I don't know the story behind that one.
You just call him Rock.
Yeah. We have another guy who works with the equipment staff, and he also does the trucks and everything. And that's Tuna. His name's Mike. I don't know the story behind Tuna either, but his nickname's Tuna. And then we have another Mike who runs Skate Zone, basically. You guys, I'm sure, know Huggy.
Yep.
And his nickname Huggy. So those are kind of the nicknames that we have right now. And I'm kind of the only one that doesn't really have one, but it's, time will tell, I guess. They called me, for whatever reason, through high school and college, they called me Ronnie. I had no clue why.
Okay.
So it was kind of caught me off guard one game when Niski said that to me, because I was at Duluth for 2 years. I was freshman at Duluth with Niskanen. So it kind of caught me off guard when he said that.
Oh, that's fun.
In the game. So I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That was a big reminder right there. I mean, so Matt Niskanen, since you've known so much of him, another Minnesota fellow, what's he like? I mean, how fun is this to have him just cross paths with you again in both of your careers? Yeah,
that was really cool. So we were freshmen together at Duluth, and we'd both just come in from high school, right? And he had a great senior year, and goes into Duluth, and I knew him for 2 years there, and then he signed with Dallas and moved on. And I'd seen him a couple times the last, I guess, 10 years, but I hadn't really, the weird one was when I saw him after the playoffs, the Flyers Capitals. It would have been in, what was that, 15-16, and I just randomly saw him in the loading dock and talked to him for a couple minutes. But he's pretty quiet, but it was cool. It was cool to get reunited with him, and I remember I was waking up this summer, and my wife tells me, "Oh, we just traded for Niskanen," and I was just like, "What?" Like, they take a double take, like, what? And so it was pretty exciting to hear that, and it's been cool getting to work with him again. So
gotta love the small world in hockey, right?
Yeah, and he's a simple, he's easy. He's a veteran. He knows, he's a good person. He's easy to work with. He's low maintenance. He's tough. Northern Minnesota guy, right? He's an Iron Ranger. So,
yep.
Yeah. So. Yeah, Andy, if we can ask you one more thing. We know you said you've been taking some walks and doing some family things, but anything else that you're doing just to stay busy as we kind of all wait for hockey to come back?
Yeah, I run every day. I used to, when I was at North Dakota, I ran marathons.
Wow.
But out east here, I just haven't had the time to do that, just with family and everything. So I try to run every day still. So I've been doing that. And then I've been watching, I watched a Vietnam War documentary on Netflix, because I majored in history. So I was pretty big history buff. So watched that. We watched The Tiger King, obviously.
Yeah.
Trying to think of some other things non-video related that we've been doing. I've been doing a lot of yard work. I'm trying to do a garden, but I just haven't had a chance to get the plants. I've got everything ready, just not the plants. So we're trying to do that. A lot of knee hockey with the kids.
Yep.
Trying to think if there's anything else hobby-wise. Nothing too crazy. We were working on a Lego set, but that kind of got shelved for a little while. So,
plenty
awesome.
She got the Disney princess castle thing from a family friend like 3 years ago. We've never put it together. So we started to put it together, and then the 4-year-old, I'll call it 3-year-old, whatever, had different ideas. So just kind of had to push that aside for a little while. But did that, and just
that's awesome.
Just simple stuff, pretty basic, but it's kind of all you can do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, you said earlier, a positive right now is just getting that extra time with family. Jordan and I were talking the last episode. Mr. James Van Riemsdyk is now a dad, and just these different things going on for different players. You see some players, Derek Grant, getting dogs and stuff like that. For you, I mean, and you as a dad, you as a husband, just overall with your family, what is this like when, like, looking at the beginning of this season? Okay, you're kind of planning, like, you might be busy during that certain portion of the schedule, and now you're not. Like, what is this like to have this sort of surprise time and this ability to build some Legos and go on runs and spend extra time playing knee hockey with your kids? What's that like?
It takes you a while at the end of the season to kind of turn the switch off and unwind. So for a couple weeks it was kind of hard to do that, but now, like I said, it's been kind of refreshing. Kind of, you hate to use that reference just because, obviously we want things back to normal. We want to be back playing and everything, but it's kind of been nice to have, the family together right now to be able to kind of take your mind off of that kind of stuff. But it's it's been an adjustment, but it has been for everyone, right? So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly how else to phrase it, but I mean, it's
It's a bonus.
it's a bonus, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's free time that you would never have had. You
Yeah.
know, and that, it's not a bad thing that you wouldn't have had it. I mean, we'd be playing playoff hockey right now, right? But it's you know, it's just it's a good time to, you know, learn to be a dad, I guess, to be a better dad, you know, to be a better family man, to be a better citizen, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And every day is a day closer to the end of this. So in the meantime, you know, we like to focus on the positives here on the Flyers Talk podcast. I know you do too, Andy. And a big positive definitely is for all of us to have that extra time with family, for sure.
Thanks so much, Andy. I really, really appreciate you coming on. This was so much fun, great insight, and so happy you're with the Flyers. And when we definitely hope to see you around the locker room soon. And glad you're doing well with your family.
Yeah, and thanks for having me. You know, it's weird to see you guys not in the locker room after the game or practice when we're just crazy running around and bumping into each other and stuff. But no, yeah, thanks for having me on, and you know, I hope I answered everything you guys wanted. You know, I just
no, it was awesome.
So, and then
thanks, Andy.
Yeah,
keep up all the great work.
Yeah, you guys is a lot of fun watching you guys and reading your stuff. So
awesome, nice, Andy. Be safe, and we'll be in touch.
Yep, thanks. You as well. Yep.
Thank you again.
Yep.
See ya. Take care.
Right.
See you soon.
So much fun. Thank you, Andy.
Yep.